Sende nobis Domine misericordiam Tua.
Et salutare nobis.
Domine exaudi orationem mea.
Et ad meus lacte mediat.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Oremus. Exaudi nos, Domine Sancte Pater Omnipotens Aeterni Deus, et mittere digneris sanctum angelum tuum de celis, qui custodiat, poviat, protegat, visitet, atque defendat omnes habitantes in hoc habitaculo, per Christum Dominum nostrum.
Factus est,
Adiutor meus, Deus meus.
Diligam te Domine fortitudo mea, Domine firmamentum meum et refugium meum.
Et liberator meus. Factus est, adiutor meus, Deus meus.
Deus meus, adiutor meus,
Externa boni meum. Factus est, adiutor meus, Deus meus.
laudabile invocabo Dominum,
Et amicis meis salus ero. Factus est, adiutor meus, Deus meus.
circumdederunt me fluctus mortis,
Et torrentes denial conturbaverunt me. Factus est, adiutor meus, Deus meus.
in tribulatione me invocavi Dominum,
Per Deum meum clamavi. Factus est, adiutor meus, Deus meus.
exaudivit de templo sua voce mea,
Et clamor meus circumspectum meus in cori divino ex Deus. Factus est, adiutor meus, Deus meus.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
Amen.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Fratres, annuscamus peccata nostra, ut apticimus ad sacram mysterie celebranda. Confitio Deo omnipotenti, et vobis fratres, qui peccavi inimis, cogitatione, verbo, opere et omissione, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, ideo pecor beatam Mariam semper Virginem, omnes angelos et sanctos, et vos fratres orare pro me, ad Dominum Deum nostrum. Miseriatur nostri omnipotens Deus, et emissis peccatis nostris, perducat nos a vitam aeterna.
Amen.
Kyrie
Oremus. Presbyte nos, rerum omnium Deus Creatore rector. Deus qui sacre legis omnia constituta, in tua et proximi dilectione posuisti, da nobis ut tua precepta servantes, ad vitam meriamur pervenire perpetua. Per Dominum nostrum Iesum Christum Filium Tuum, qui tecum vivere et regnat in unitate Spiritus Sancti, Deus per omnia saecula saeculorum.
Amen.
A reading from the book of the Prophet Amos. Hear this, you who trample upon the needy and destroy the poor of the land. When will the new moon be over, you ask, that we may sell our grain, and the Sabbath, that we may display the wheat? We will diminish the ephah, add to the shekel, and fix our scales for cheating. We will buy the lowly for silver, and the poor for a pair of sandals. Even the refuse of the wheat we will sell. The Lord has sworn by the pride of Jacob, never will I forget a thing they have done. Verum Domini.
Verum gratias.
Lectura de la primera carta del apóstol San Pablo a Timoteo. Te ruego, hermano, que ante todo se hagan oraciones, plegarias, súplicas y acciones de gracias por todos los hombres, y en particular por los jefes de Estado y las demás autoridades, para que podamos llevar una vida tranquila y en paz, entregada a Dios y respetable en todo sentido. Esto es bueno y agradable a Dios, nuestro Salvador, pues Él quiere que todos los hombres se salven y todos lleguen al conocimiento de la verdad. porque no hay sino un solo Dios y un solo mediador entre Dios y los hombres, Cristo Jesús. Hombre él también, que se entregó como rescate por todos. Y él dio testimonio de esto a su debido tiempo, y de esto yo he sido constituido. Digo la verdad y no miento, pregonero y apóstol para enseñar la fe y la verdad. Quiero pues que los hombres, libres de odios y divisiones, hagan oración donde quiera que se encuentren, levantando al cielo sus manos puras. Verbum Domini.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Lectio Sancti Evangelii secundum Lucam.
Gloria tibi, Domine.
Jesus said to his disciples, "The person who is trustworthy in very small matters is also trustworthy in great ones, and the person who is dishonest in very small matters is also dishonest in great ones. If therefore you are not trustworthy with dishonest wealth, who will trust you with true wealth? If you are not trustworthy with what belongs to another, who will give you what is yours? No servant can serve two masters. He will either hate one and love the other, or be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and mammon." The Gospel of the Lord. Well, good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Just have a couple of announcements. The Scholastic Explorers program, our after-school program for children, Los Exploradores de Escolásticos, it has begun, and children can come anytime during the year. If they haven't registered already, you can register at any time during the year to join this program, this after-school program for children. Puede registrarse en cualquier momento durante el año para este programa para después de la escuela, los exploradores de la fe. De exploradores escolásticos. Entonces esta es una registración abierta por todo el año. There'll also be a parent meeting for our new religious education program for children with special needs, un programa para los niños con necesidades especiales. La reunión es el domingo 9 de octubre. The meeting will be October 9th at 2:45 p.m., 3 menos cuarto de la tarde. el 9 de octubre. So October 9th at 2:45 there'll be a parents meeting. Es una reunión para los padres. Our new bereavement ministry, Morning's Hope, begins September 29th. For more information, please see the bulletin. Hay un nuevo ministerio, La Esperanza de la Mañana, para, ¿cómo se dice bereavement? No sé en español bereavement, pero para los que tienen un miembro de sus familias que han fallecido. Entonces eso va a comenzar el 29 de septiembre. Habla con hermano Donaldo sobre ese programa. So speak with Brother Don about the new bereavement program, which will begin on September 29th. RCIA for adults meets this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Rica para los adultos va a comenzar este miércoles a las 7. Puede registrarse todavía también. Youth, Junior, and Children's Oratory is tonight. Los oratorios, grupos de los oratorios para los niños y jóvenes es esta noche a las 7. It's tonight at 7 p.m. Parents with children in the confirmation program and 1 year and the first year of RCIA teens can sign the forms for their trip, which is next Saturday. They can sign those forms after the Mass. It's a trip we're going to the Shrine of Our Lady of Fatima in Washington, New Jersey. Hay un viaje para los niños en las clases de confirmación y en primer año de Rica para los jóvenes. Puede inscribir los formularios en la entrada, los formularios de permiso. Also, we're looking to begin an information table at the entrance to the church. Queremos comenzar una mesa para información en la entrada de la iglesia, and we're looking for volunteers. If you'd like to volunteer and help us, it'll only be 30 minutes before each Mass. 30 minutos antes de cada misa. Entonces, si quiere voluntar, por favor, llámame en la oficina. If you would like to volunteer to help us 30 minutes before the Mass with the information table, please call me in the office sometime during the week. Also, a couple of weeks ago, we had the great fortune of being able to find a relic of St. Philip Neri. And we had one already of St. Anthony, and we also found reliquaries to place them in. So that's the little house-looking buildings on the altar by the tabernacle. And the one on the left, closer to the statue of St. Anthony, that is a relic of, closer to St. Philip, is a relic of St. Philip. It's some of his, when St. Philip died, he bled a lot. And that is one of the cloths, it's a piece of one of the cloths that collected his blood when he died. So that piece of cloth is 450 years old. And the relic of St. Anthony is a piece of St. Anthony's bone. And both of those relics now are in those reliquaries there next to the tabernacle. Reliquios? Sí, reliquias, pero el contenedor. Relicario. Tenemos nuevos relicarios cerca del tabernáculo. Uno es de San Felipe Neri, es un parte de su sangre del día de su muerte. Y hay un poco del hueso de San Antonio en el otro relicario. And so some people were like, why do you do that? Well, it's because we can't all go. I can't go to Rome whenever I want to pray before the tomb of St. Philip, and I can't go to Padua whenever I want to pray before the tomb of St. Anthony. So the church allows us to have a piece of the tomb here with us in our parish. So if you have any special needs or things, you can come kneel down at the altar when Mass isn't going on and pray before a share of the tombs of these great saints. Puede acercarse a la barandilla del altar cuando la misa no está pasando para orar a los santos en un pedazo de sus sepulcros. Enfrente de un pedazo de sus sepulcros para pedir la intercesión de los santos, especialmente los dos grandes santos de nuestra iglesia, St. Philip Neri and St. Anthony of Padua. So especially before our two great saints, of our parish, St. Philip and St. Anthony of Padua. So pretty cool, right? Yeah, no.
Yeah, okay, great. All right, has anybody ever seen the movie Over the Hedge? It's an animation from 2006. If you've seen it, raise your hand if you saw it. It's a great show, right? A great movie. It's very funny. And if you haven't seen it, I'll give you a little bit of the background of the movie. The movie's about a group of animals who hibernate for the winter. And when they come out of hibernation, they realize that the forest that they had lived in is now a housing development. And so they're not sure how they're going to survive now that their forest is gone. And so a raccoon comes along, and he's going to show them how to survive. He's basically like, I'll show you how to get some food out of these people. You know, because raccoons are really good at that, right? Getting in your garbage cans and getting all your food. So he's going to show them. So he becomes a mastermind, the leader of all these animals. And there's one scene, there's a character in the movie, and his name is Hammy. And he's a squirrel, and Hammy's really cute. I love Hammy. But he's like all over the place. He's a completely distracted squirrel, like squirrels are, right? They run here, and then they run back, and then they run here, and so they're always distracted. And so Hammy has a job that he has to do, because one of the homeowners, they want to get into the house of one of the homeowners to get in their refrigerator. But that homeowner had put all sorts of booby traps around the yard in order to keep the animals away, or to kill the animals if they came in their yard. And so you remember this story? You remember it? Have you guys seen it? Yeah. So you have all these booby traps all throughout the yard. And so Hammy is the raccoon cast a fishing line, over to the house, and Hammy's got to go from the tree that they're in over to the house and then down to shut off the booby traps in the yard. So the raccoon casts the fishing wire over. Hammy makes it across, but there's an acorn on the roof. And Hammy gets really excited over this acorn, because squirrels like acorns, right? And so he gets really excited over this acorn. And he forgets all about what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to go down the gutter and shut off the booby traps in the yard. And you can see the other animals in the tree. And they're like, of course, why did we send the squirrel? So anyway, Hammy's all distracted with the acorn. So the raccoon just comes up with a great idea. He's going to use a laser pointer and distract Hammy again, because Hammy's very easily distracted. Distract him again with the laser pointer, and kind of lead him with the laser pointer down the gutter and to this booby trap to shut it off. And that's what happens, and finally, voila, the job is done, the booby trap is disarmed, and the animals can go through the yard. Well, I love this scene in this movie. I love it because, first of all, I love squirrels. I don't know if do you like squirrels? I like squirrels. Squirrels are amazing animals. You know, they're brilliant animals, and they're like acrobats. The feats that they can do in the air and jumping from places and landing on it, it's really amazing what squirrels can do. But I love squirrels, but I like squirrels outside, not inside. I don't know if you ever had a squirrel inside. Every once in a while we get a squirrel in here. Especially these two windows, the squirrels like to come down the gutter and get into these two windows and run around the church. It's a nice little playground for them. Well, the other day, Brother Daniel and Brother Zachary came to me. There's a squirrel in the church. And I said, well, go get him. So Brother Daniel and Brother Zachary had to come in and try and corral the squirrel to try and get the squirrel out of here. But I was rooting for the squirrel. But they finally got the squirrel out. But anyway, that's not the only reason I like this particular scene in the movie. It's also because when I saw it the first time, it reminded me of how we can often be in our life. You know, we can become full of distractions, where everything is distracting us and we can't focus on anything. It could be things in our life or things in the world that distract us from what's most important. You know, we forget the most important things sometimes in our life because we're distracted by all these little things that aren't as important as the most important things. And also other kinds of distractions that happen in our life. And so this movie kind of reminds me about what happens when those distractions take control over our life. We become like Hammy. We can't focus anymore on what's really important. And so instead of focusing what's important, we focus on these little acorns that we have, or something like that, these little treasures or things that we have that we like to obsess about, instead of focusing on what's most important. Well, that kind of distraction in Hammy, you know, the squirrel, is very lovable, right? If you've seen the movie, you know Hammy's one of the best characters in the movies. So cute and adorable and all that. But it's not so cute when it happens to you, right? When you're filled with distractions and you can't focus or concentrate on anything at all. Well, our first reading, you may be thinking, Father, what are you talking about? Why are you talking about this movie and a squirrel? But our first reading today is from the Prophet Amos. And if you remember our series on the Old Testament, remember how I talked about the kingdom got split? And there was a northern kingdom, and then eventually the northern kingdom, the northern kingdom was all off the mark. They were disobedient towards God and doing all sorts of crazy stuff, and eventually they get conquered. Well, Amos lived during the time of the northern kingdom, before the northern kingdom got conquered by Assyria. And he's there towards the end of that time, right before they get conquered by Assyria, maybe a couple decades before. And he's warning the people, look, unless you change, you're going to lose this kingdom. And you're going to be taken off into exile. So he warns them, get rid of your paganism. All these things we talked about when we talked about the Old Testament. Get rid of your paganism, stop oppressing the poor, and stop the injustices that you commit against one another. Well, in the part of the prophecy that we read this morning, the people of the north are so far gone that the Sabbath day itself, the day of rest and the day of prayer, the day to go to the synagogue or the temple and to worship God, even that Sabbath day has become a complete nuisance to them. They want nothing to do with it. Amos says, you keep on saying, when is this going to be over so that we can go about the things that we really want to be about? Making money, oppressing the poor, entertaining ourselves. And so Amos says, that's what you want to do. And so the Sabbath has become a nuisance for you. Well, they're completely distracted by the world. Greed and wealth and entertainment are their precious acorn, and they can't see anything else but that. So even to stop to worship God for one day a week becomes a complete nuisance and an obstacle for them. Well, when you think about it, remember how I said all these things that happened in ancient Israel? We all do the same thing sometimes to ourselves. Sometimes, thank God I don't see anybody do that. Maybe you do it in hiding, but I don't see people doing this. But I hear that sometimes people do this in the Mass. They'll be checking their watch. Is he done yet? Is he still going? Is the Mass over yet? I got things to do. I don't see anybody doing that, thank God. But I hear that people sometimes do that. It's like we can't wait to get it over with because we got so many other important things to do for the rest of our day. Really? What else could possibly be more important than what we're doing right now? There's nothing. Or sometimes it could be that we miss Mass altogether because we want to go to a sports game, or our kids are in a game, or they're on a traveling team, or whatever it might be, or maybe they got a dance recital. And so we say, well, we'll miss Mass this Sunday, we'll go next week. Putting sports or dance recitals or all sorts of extracurricular activities before God. What do you think that says to God? I prefer to go to a game. I prefer to teach my children. Go to the game, forget about God, forget about the Mass. What does that say to God? I remember one time a man came up to me, and I'm Irish and Cuban, so I can have a little bit of a temper when somebody gets me really riled up. And one thing that drives me crazy is this. He came up to me and he said, oh, Father, well, me and my family, we take off from Mass for the summer. And as soon as he said, my blood was like a teapot. I was ready to explode. And I said to him, well, do you want God to take off from you for the summer? Not protect you? Not love you? Not forgive you? Not take care of you? Do you want him to take a vacation from you? Then why do you think it's okay to treat him like that? It's crazy, right? Besides those kind of things show us that our priorities are all out of whack. When God isn't first in our life, when the Mass isn't the most important thing that we do during the week, then our life is all upside down. We got everything out of whack, out of its proper order. God is first. And then what we do here today, for this hour and 10 or 15 minutes, whatever it is the most important hour and 15 minutes of your entire week. There's nothing better or greater or more wonderful that we could do than celebrate the Mass. So sometimes it's a distraction and shows us that we got everything out of whack. Sometimes it's a distraction just that we have even while we are praying or while we're at Mass. Have you ever been distracted during Mass or during prayer where you were praying or you're at Mass and you start to think about, what you had to get at the grocery store or what you were going to do later on? Has that ever happened to you? Raise your hand if it's happened to you. It happens to everybody, so go ahead, raise everybody's hands up. It happens to all of us. Sometimes we get distracted. Well, when those kind of distractions happen, don't stress out about it. Just do your best to say, okay, I'm having this thought. I don't want to think about this right now. Turn the page on it and refocus back on the Mass, back on what you're doing right in this moment. Focus on your prayer again. And if it happens 10 times or 20 times, do the same thing. But don't get all bent out of shape about it. It happens to everybody. Don't give way to the distractions. Turn the page and refocus and begin again. Sometimes the distractions that we have can be because we're worried about something. When that and all of us have worries in our life sometimes. Sometimes it's a thing that happens in our life. Maybe it's something at work or whatever. Maybe it's someone in your life, like a child or a spouse or a friend that is sick or in need, or a parent, whatever. Somebody you're worried about, that's going to happen. When that happens during the Mass or while you're praying, just close your eyes and picture yourself putting that worry or that person, putting them right into the arms of Jesus. And just say to Jesus, Jesus, for this hour, this 15, whatever it is, for this time, Jesus, I'm going to place them in your arms. You take care of them for this hour. And let me just focus on you. You can always pick it up on the way out. But give it over to Jesus for that time to talk to him. And then turn the page and refocus again. And sometimes, the final thing is, sometimes the distractions are reminding us that something is a little too important in our life. If we come to Mass or we're trying to pray and all we can think of is work, then maybe it's telling us that work has too high of a priority in our life. Maybe if all we're thinking about is money, the financial problems that we have, or whatever it might be, maybe money is too important in our life. If all we're thinking about is what we're going to do later on, how we're going to be entertained, what movie we're going to watch, what park we're going to go see, what trip we're going to take, maybe entertainment and entertaining ourselves is too much of a priority in our life. We live in a society that's addicted to being entertained. Every free moment is a moment to be entertained. So maybe entertainment, or whatever it is, work, whatever, has too high of a priority in our life. If that's happening to you, while it's happening, just scribble it down on a little note and say, I'm going to put that aside for now, and I'm going to focus on you, Lord. And then later on, take a look at those things and see how you can change the priority of that thing in your life and make it less important. But through all of it, don't get bent out of shape about things. As long as we have the desire to be with God, the desire to pray to him, the desire to devote our time to him, the desire to love him, that already is spending time with him and loving him, and that pleases him. One of my favorite prayers from St. John Henry Newman is this, because sometimes we get it wrong, sometimes we mess it all up, and I think that that's okay. I mean, if it's a sin, we need to confess it. But sometimes we're going to mess things up, sometimes we're going to get distracted, sometimes we're not going to put our whole self into it like we had hoped we would. But at this prayer from St. John Henry Newman I love, he says, Lord, I pray that my desire to please you does in fact please you. And I believe it really does. Our desire to please God does in fact please him. So have that desire, take those steps, and you're going to be A-okay. And just a couple of words in Spanish. A veces podemos estar consumidos por el mundo, como los del reino del norte de Israel durante la época del profeta Amos. Sentían que el día de reposo era una molestia. Todo lo que les importaba era el negocio y ganar dinero y su entretenimiento. A veces podemos ser así. La misa se convierte en una molestia para nosotros porque pensamos que tenemos cosas más importantes como el trabajo, los deportes o otras actividades, o por eso nos perdimos la misa por estas cosas. A veces revisamos constantemente nuestros relojes para ver cuándo terminará, para poder hacer otras cosas. Además de estas cosas,
que muestran que nuestras prioridades están fuera del orden. También hay distracciones ordinarias que todos nosotros tenemos. Entonces, ¿cómo tratamos con ellas? ¿Cómo manejamos las distracciones ordinarias para que no terminar como el pobre Amy en la ardilla en una película Over the Hedge? Bueno, con las distracciones comunes, incluso cosas como pensamientos que no deseados, es importante solamente no tiene ansiedades, solamente torna la página y reenfocarse en ese momento. Y puede pasar la página una y otra vez si las distracciones continúan, pero no se enoje por eso. Solo pase la página y de los pensamientos. Si la distracción se trata de alguna preocupación, simplemente dígalo: Jesús, te estoy entregando esto ahora para ti. Guárdelo para mí por esos momentos. A veces algunas distracciones pueden estar diciéndonos algo. Tal vez nos está diciendo que alguna otra cosa ha sido colocada sobre Dios en nuestra vida. Por ejemplo, el trabajo o los ¿cómo se dice? Financieros, ¿sí? Financieros o otras cosas en nuestras vidas es demasiado importante en nuestras vidas. Entonces necesitamos confiar en el Señor y póngalos al lado. Podemos trabajar en todas esas cosas con la gracia de Dios, pero lo más importante es hacer nuestro mejor esfuerzo con la gracia de Dios para mantenerlo a Él primero en nuestra vida. Guardar la misa y el sábado como el momento más importante de nuestra semana. Y luego, con todas las otras distracciones, solo pruebe esas pequeñas técnicas y vea si ayudan un poco. Pero no se preocupe, siempre y cuando tengamos a Dios en primer lugar en nuestra vida y deseemos permanecer enfocados en Él, entonces Él honra nuestro deseo y nuestro deseo mismo le agrada. Credo in unum Deo. Orate fratres, umiam festum sacrificium acceptabile, fiat apud Deum Patrem omnipotentem. Munera quesumus Domine, Tue plebis propitiatus assume, utque fidei pietate profitentur, sacramentis celestibus apprehendant, per Christum Dominum nostrum. Dominus vobiscum,
Ecum spiritu tuo,
susum corda,
habemus ad.
gratias agamus Domino Deo nostro. Vere dignum et justum est, acum et salutare, nos tibi semper et ubique gratias agere, Domini Sancte Pater omnipotens aeterni Deus, per Christum Dominum nostrum, cuius hoc merificum fuit opus per pescali mysterium, ote peccato et mortis iugo ad hoc gloriam vocaremus, quanum genus electum, regale sacerdotium, gens sancta et acquisitionis populis diteremur, et tuas annunciaremus ubique virtutes, qui nos de tenebris altum admirabile lumen vocasti, et ideo cum angelis et archangelis, cum tronis et dominationibus, cumque omni militia celestis et celestitus, hymnum gloriae Tue, canimus sine fine dicentes. Vere sanctum est Domine, fons omni sanctitatis, ec ergo dona quesumus Spiritus Turi rore sanctifica, o nobis corpus et sanguis fiat, Domini nostri Iesu Christi. Qui compassione voluntariae tarderetur, accepi panem, et gratias angens fregit, dedique discipulis Tuis dicens. Accipite et manducate ex hoc omnes, hoc est enim corpus meum, quod vobis tradetur. simili modo, postquam tenatum est, accipiens ec calicem, iterem tibi gratias angens et discipuli suis dicent, accipite et bibite, exeo omnes, hic est enim cali sanguinis mei, novi et eterni testamenti, qui pro vobis et pro multis effundetur, in remissionem peccatorum, voc facite in mem commemorationem. Mysterium Fidei. Memoresitor mortis et resurrectionis eius, tibi Domine panem vitae, et calicem salutis offerimus, gratias a gentes qui nos dignus abuisti, a stare corde te et tibi ministrare, et supplices te precamur, ut corporis et sanguinis Christi participes, a Spiritus Sancto congregemur in unum. Recordare, Domini, ecclesiae tue toto orbe diffuse, votem in caritate perficias, unicum Papa nostro Francisco et Episcopo nostro Davido et universo clero. Memento essiam fratum nostrorum, quins per resurrectionis dormierunt, omnium in tua miseratione defunctorum, et eos in numen votus tui admite. Omnium nostrum quesumus miserere, ut cum beata Deitrice Virgine Maria, beato Iosef eo sponso, beatis apostolis et omnibus sanctis, qui tibi a seculo plaquerunt, aeterne vitae meri amores et consortes, et te laudemus et glorificemus, per Filium Tuum, Iesum Christum. Per ipsum et cum ipso in ipso, est tibi Deo Patri omnipotenti, in unitate Spiritus Sancti, omnis honore et gloria per omnia saecula saeculorum. Receptis salutaribus moniti, et benedictioni formati, audemus dicere, Pater noster, qui es in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimitte nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimittimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo. Libera nos quesumus, Domine, ab omnibus malis, da propitius patem in diebus nostris, ut ope misericordiae Tue adiuti, et a peccato simus semper liberi, et ab omni perturbatione securi, expectantes beatum spem, et aventum saltoris nostri Iesu Christi.
Via Tuum potestas, et gloria saecula.
Domini Iesu Christi, que existi apostolis Tuis, patrem lincum vobis, patrem meam do vobis, ne respicias peccata nostra, sed fidem ecclesiae Tuae, eamque secundum voluntatem Tuam, pacificari et coadunari digneris, qui vis serenas in saecula saeculorum.
Amen.
Pax Domini sit semper vobiscum.
Et spiritu tuo.
et ad enim separare permittas. Ecce agnus Dei, ecce quid voli peccata mundi, beati qui ad cenum agnivocati sunt. Domine, nostrum Deus, potenteris et tecum meo, sed tantum de glebo, et in habitu anima mea.
Cantabor Domino, qui bona triburi, usque quod Domine oblivisceris usque corporam consilia in anima mea, dolorem in corde meo perdie. Usque quo exaltabitur inimicus meus super me, cantavo Domino, qui bona tribuit mihi. Respice exaudime, Domine Deus meus, illumina oculos meus, nequanto dormiam in morte. Cantamo Domino, qui bona tribuit mihi. Nequanto dicat inimicus meus, prevalui adversus eo. Neque exultent qui tribulant me, si povus puero. Cantamo Domino, qui bona tribuit mihi. Ego autem in misericordia tua speravi, exultavi cor meum in salutari
Oremus. Construis Domine, refici sacramentis, continuis atole benignus auxiliis, ut redemptionis effectum, et mysteriis capiamus et moribus, per Christum Dominum nostrum. Dominus vobiscum. Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater et Filius et Spiritus Sanctus. Ite missa est. Deo gratias.